It's no secret that when you try to scale your Google Ads account or try to make it more profitable, one of the key challenges is maintaining a healthy cost per click basis across your entire account. And while cost per click is usually not that big of an issue when you're just getting started, it can become quite problematic once you try to spend like 10, 20, 50 or $100,000 per month and beyond. So in this video, I will share 5 strategies with you that you can literally utilize today to run more profitable campaigns by drastically cutting your cost per click across Google Ads. So without any further ado, let's get started with number 1. So the first strategy is using audience layering on top of your shopping and search ads. You're probably familiar with using audiences for observation, okay? So when you run a search campaign, for example, you can add a so-called observation audience. And with that observation audience, you're now looking at, okay, who is actually triggering my ads and who is converting, right? So let's say, for example, you sell a dog product and you add dog lovers as an audience in observation mode to that search campaign. Now you can see how many people that buy your product are also in that dog lover audience versus in other audiences that you didn't specify. But what very, very few brands are actually doing is to use audience targeting in actual targeting mode and not just observation, right? So this is especially useful if you are still a relatively small brand, because once you are a lot bigger, then typically you don't want to limit yourself by doing that. But if you're a small brand that wants to, really maintain a very healthy cost per click on a small scale, optimize everything as much as possible, you can use audience targeting to layer your search and shopping campaigns with even more data. And now you will really focus on the absolute lowest hanging fruits, right? So now people have to search for, let's say, a dog toy or a dog treat, and they have to be in this dog audience, which tends to make them more relevant. At least that's what we see when we run smaller campaigns for small to medium-sized clients. We sometimes can get a head start with that sort of approach. Number 2 is make more clicky ads. And while this may sound a little bit too obvious, let me explain real quick. Most people don't know how to actually write clicky ads and how to actually, come up with an ad variation that has the highest possible click-through rate. The thing that you shouldn't do is just repeat yourself in all the search ad headlines, for example. And I will talk about shopping in a second too. So what I see a lot in search with our e-commerce clients when they come to us, for example, is that they have a whole set of search ads, and then the first 7 headlines are, for example, the best dog toy shop, and then the next one is dog toy shop UK, and then the next one is buy dog food or buy dog toys online, right? So repeating. Instead, you should really try to come up with a variation, or rather a combination of headlines and descriptions that is as clicky as possible, meaning high click-through rate. And of course, the primary goal is high conversion rate. So you have to pre-qualify people properly. But once you do that, once you actually mention the product, once you actually tell people what it's about, then in my opinion, your primary objective becomes having a high click-through rate, because your ad can only pre-qualify so far. But once that is met, right, once you actually pre-qualify and you're not misleading people, now it's about getting as many relevant people to your site as possible. So by having a clicky ad, you are drastically boosting your click-through rate, and by doing so, you actually, first of all, typically get cheaper CPCs in return, because Google sort of rewards you with having a high click-through rate, because of course they want to send as many people as possible to your site. But second of all, you don't have to sort of dive into more expensive volume, if that makes sense. So if you try to double your volume without increasing your cost, your click-through rate, this will inevitably make your CPCs more expensive, all other things being equal, right? But if you increase your click-through rate, you basically get more clicks for the same amount of impressions, meaning your clicks don't become more expensive. So that's an amazing way to actually scale that many people really miss out on. So if you have a 3% click-through rate on search, or if you have a 0.4% click-through rate on shopping, both of which tend to be relatively low values, but of course it depends on the industry, that is something that you can work on. With shopping, your click-through rate is almost entirely dependent on the image. I have numerous videos on this channel talking about shopping optimization, shopping scaling, feed optimization, and so on and so forth. So make sure that you check that out if you are specifically interested in shopping CTR optimization, for example, but image is by far the most important thing there, followed by the title, of course, if it's like helpful, descriptive, etc. So make sure to regularly tweak that, regularly test that. If you can find like a better image variation that is more clicky, that is more enticing, will get a higher click-through rate. On search, you can do more things than just that. You can also add all the assets that are available. You can add the extensions, all of those things, site links, promotion, call outs, they will all contribute to a higher click-through rate and ultimately make your ads cheaper. Number 3 is capture a wider range of impressions. Again, similar as with click-through rate, this might seem a little bit obvious, but still it is super important. If you, for example, rely on an exact and phrase match strategy for search terms, right, or for your search campaigns, consider opening up to broad match with, of course, proper negative keyword research. If you only rely on exact, maybe you can start with phrase. If you're only relying on phrase, maybe open up to broad. You don't have to do this with your entire account all at once, but if you do it step by step, starting with some ad groups or some campaigns, for example, you will be surprised sometimes how much you can save when it comes to opening up your match types. Of course, it's a numbers game. If you have a 10% conversion rate on an exact match keyword, you open it up to broad, now your conversion rate drops to 2%, but your click price gets cut in half. Probably not that great of a deal. But if you only lose a little bit of conversion rate, or maybe nothing at all, and you manage to drastically cut your CPCs, which normally you are when you switch to phrase or broad match, just because Google has so much more inventory now, this is very often a good deal. Of course, little disclaimer here, there is a point in time for exact match keywords, and that's especially when you have a super specific product, or when you are in a very specific niche where you know that you have to properly describe the keyword, or when you have a tiny budget and you won't see conversion optimization really kick in. That way you maintain full control when using exact match. But in all other cases, when you're scaling, when you have a lot of conversion data, when you really want to push the account forward, when you are in some sort of mass market, then testing at least phrase, but ideally broad, will give you cheaper CPCs, oftentimes without sacrificing much conversion rate. And when it comes to shopping, it does make sense to add highly relevant keywords to your title instead of just the product name, for example, so that more people will find your product, and just this one thing might get you anywhere from 10 to 80% or so more impressions, depending on the original title that you have. Number 4 is having a better ad landing page. And this is something that so many e-commerce brands miss out on, that at this point in time here at Cartlift, with all our clients, we help them within our Google Ads management and Google Ads consulting. We also help them with store conversion rate optimization. You see, we drive about 3 to 4 million clicks or so per month to our clients' online stores. And by doing so, we know what works on the product page, what works on the collection page, how should the menu look like, what's a good way to position different sections of your product page, and so on and so forth. And by doing so, you can find out what's the best landing page, the best category page, the best URL in general for each ad. Because of course, Google assigns a quality score value for the landing page experience, and it does so not only for search, but also for all the other campaigns, even though you cannot directly see it. So no matter which campaign you run, Google will give you an actual score for the landing page experience, the landing page quality, and this will always, to a certain degree, make your ad cheaper. Because you can imagine if the person stays on your site signaling, okay, this was actually a good ad, this is something that I was looking for, Google wants that. The only thing Google cares more about than some short-term money is that people are generally happy with search results, and that they're generally happy with what they find. And if you can deliver that, if you can give people an average session duration of 60 seconds, 2 minutes or something, which is really high actually, then Google will reward that with cheaper CPC. So if you can, in case of search, for example, try multiple ad groups if you cannot find a perfect landing page that is relevant for all your keywords. And with shopping, really look at your product page, right? So if you have a product page that you're not that happy with, or you use tools like Hotjar and you realize that it's not that relevant, people drop off early, they don't scroll, think about how you can write a better product template on Shopify, for example, that then all your product pages will actually benefit from. As I said, it's something that we help all our clients with for free, so to speak, as a bonus for our ad management, because it's so tremendously important. And strategy number 5 only makes sense if you run on manual CPC or maximize clicks, and that is finding out what your minimum CPC bid is. I see this all the time. Brands simply start with a random number, right? So they start a new shopping campaign on manual CPC and they start with $2 or $1 or whatever it might be. First of all, you can almost always undercut the bid that you have right now if it was just like randomly chosen, right? And second of all, this is the only way that you can truly find out what the minimum is. If you start, for example, with a brand new shopping campaign and you set a bid of 20 cents, chances are you start to get some traffic already. Of course, again, depends on the country, depends on the niche, etc. But the point here is there were many cases where, now clients spend like $1.20 on a click. And I simply went in and said, okay, what if we can actually get away with like 40 cents? And I drastically dropped the CPC bid. And then I was, of course, getting much less traffic. But that way I was able to find out what's the actual minimum that I cannot undercut no matter how good the quality of my ad is. And then you can work your way upwards, right? So this is something that in most cases now, of course, unless campaigns are already super mature and everything has been tried and they are running on target ROAS anyway. But on new campaigns / new accounts, we always try to start low, especially when we don't know yet what a typical CPC level looks like in that space. Because even if the keyword planner might tell you, hey, the minimum is like 60 cents, you sometimes can get away with 20 or 30 or 40. So it's very important to try and not to just use random numbers and stick with them, because chances are over time, over the months or possibly even years, you can save thousands or tens and tens of thousands of dollars that way if you find out what the true minimum is. So those were 5 tips for decreasing and minimizing your cost per click. Let me know in the comments which of those you have tried already, or if there's anything else that you can think of that helped you to further decrease your cost per click. And if you do not only want to minimize your cost per click, but also to maximize your profitability with Google and scale, even though you might have this invisible ceiling where it seems that you cannot scale any further, make sure to check the link in the description to request your Google Ads profit roadmap, where I sit down and actually give you a fully detailed step-by-step guide on what you can do in your specific case to scale or to make your account more profitable, or both. That's entirely free. If you make more than $50,000 a month with your brand combined across all channels, then you can request that for free, implement it yourself, or you can ultimately then request our help as well after I have delivered that roadmap for you. So with that being said, thanks a lot for watching. Leave a like and please subscribe for more Google Ads and performance marketing content for e-commerce. And now I look forward to see you in the next video again. Bye-bye.